Hey guys. Hi, so Mike Robinson, I'm head of engineering for Deloitte across the UK. I just want to show a video because a lot of people in Belfast don't know about us and don't know what we do or where we came from. So Deloitte, like I said, big company, been around for 150 years, one of the big four largest professional services firm across the... Oh, am I not connected? Can I get the mic working? Yeah. One of the largest professional services firms in the world. And about a year ago, we've had an engineering capability doing technology projects, so involved in things like iPlayer, Transport for London, congestion charging, projects like that. But about a year ago, we launched a digital business, which effectively was a digital agency. And we brought together that engineering capability with that creative capability, with also that advisory side of it as well. And we formed what was Deloitte Digital, an entirely new brand, a new entity within Deloitte, and I head up one of the divisions in that, which is our engineering group across the whole of the UK. A lot of people don't know about that, and what a lot of people don't know as well is we have 12 studios across the world, Sydney, London, Seattle, Tokyo, and the 12th studio that launched was Belfast. And we'll be moving into a dedicated studio space in Belfast in January, so a dedicated building fitted and designed for a digital agency. So yeah, we're here and we're making it work. So what I want to talk to you today is about two things. I want to talk to you about digital disruption. A lot of people during the day have talked to you about digital disruption, and hopefully what I'll be able to do is bring some of all this, the sort of stats and examples and stuff we've heard today, and bring it into something that explains kind of what is digital disruption and what does it mean for you guys and your organizations. That's really the second thing I want to talk about, what it is and what you do about it. Okay? Okay, so what is digital disruption? So first thing I want to do is, I know it's just after lunch, can everybody just stand up? Is that possible? Everyone just stand up? It's a power crazy thing. I love doing this at conferences. So in 2002, HMV sold 44 million CD singles. Right? What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to sit down if you don't even have a CD player in your house. Yeah, so sit down if you don't have a CD player. A dedicated CD player. DVD players don't count. Right? Okay? Now what I want you to sit down if you haven't bought a physical CD in the past year. Okay? I don't know I bet you a lot of you guys bought it for your car. Anyway, so now what I want to do is I want you to sit down if you haven't bought a physical CD from a physical store in the past year. Okay? That's digital disruption. Yeah? Going from 44 million physical CDs sold primarily in stores to very, very little. And actually, by 2009, they were only selling about 1 million, 1.5 million CDs. So that's an example of kind of digital disruption in play. Actually, this was a quote from Steve Jobs, and what he was talking about here was, it was in the time of the dot-com bubble burst, and lots of companies were looking to divest and make people redundant and get their numbers down. And what Steve Jobs said is, we chose a different path. What we opted to do was keep putting great products in front of our customers, and they would continue to open their wallets. Yeah. So it was about putting great services and great functions and great products in front of their customers, and they'll continue to come back and come back. And this notion of kind of being disruptive and being competitive in terms of what we're producing isn't new. It's not something that's only appeared in the past 10 years. It's not something that came about with the internet, and we've been doing it since when we went from the Stone Age to the Iron Age. Was an example of disruption. I could have done that example with flint axes. I don't think it would have worked as well. And even then, when we go kind of further afield, when we go into the diesel engine overtaking the steam engine as well with the Industrial Revolution and stuff like that. So the notion of disruption isn't new, but digital disruption is really about taking a lot of trends that are occurring over the past few years and seeing what type of effect they're having and some of the new business models that are appearing off those trends. And some of those trends or causes and the effects that they're having are some of the things I want to talk about and give you some examples of those new business models and talk a bit about how it relates to you. So, first one then, people's behaviors and attitudes have changed. Customers expect more now. They have with the prevalence of mobile and tablet, they're always connected. They want something and they want it now. And if they can't get it, and if you don't make it easy enough for them to get it, they will go elsewhere, and they know how to go elsewhere now. I don't know if people have been in a situation where you've been buying something online and the conversion process to get it from your basket into actually buying it becomes too painful, so you're just like, no, I'm just going to go to the last site that has all my registration details on it, and I'm happy to pay 50p more for that privilege. That's kind of how Amazon's pricing model works. They work out how they're priced against their competitors and put a little bit more onto it because they know you're more comfortable buying from them. So yeah, people's behaviors change. People are comfortable transacting on the internet. They're comfortable exchanging information and knowledge on the internet as well. And then, of course, the adoption of mobile and tablet. I don't think any digital presentation would be a digital presentation without some sort of stats and mobile. So my one is that there are now more mobile phone users in the world than there are toothbrush owners in the world. So there you go. So what's the effect of stuff like this? Well, customers have different expectations. Like I said, they want more, they want it now, and they know how to get it. And the way they behave and the way they interact is all starting to change. And their expectations in things like things we didn't worry so much about in the past, but their expectations around brand and around user experience are much higher than they've ever been. And we talk about things like how their buying behaviors have even changed. So we heard earlier from Google about saying about how many of us have done research to buy a product before we actually went and bought that product. And we used to refer in old kind of marketing speak, we used to talk about the first moment of truth. And the first moment of truth is the moment you see a product for the first time and you connect to it. It's why we see advertising and packaging about being kind of wholesome or being just like your grandma used to make it. It's about making that connection at the first time you interact with a product. What Google came up with, they called it the zero moment of truth. They said people are deciding what products they're buying before they've even seen the product, before they've even seen it physically on the shelf. They're doing that research online. They're hearing what their friends are interested in. They're going out there and they're going into the shop knowing what they're buying and knowing how much they're paying for it. I was talking about that zero moment of truth rather than that first moment of truth. So things are changing. Okay, some more causes then. We know more about our customers than we ever have. Things like social networks, things like big data, things like powerful web analytics means we know much more about our customers than we ever have. Actually, we know much more about people who aren't even our customers yet than we ever have. And this means we can be much smarter. Business can be much smarter about how they acquire and target and access their customers and how they interact with them once they've got them. We heard from Chain Reaction's notion about how they kind of were able to go online and go global. That's much easier to do than it ever has been in the past. Not to belittle what Chain Reactions have achieved, but much easier to do than it was in the past. It's much easier to find the right type of customer as well. So if the global example is about breadth, it's also incredibly important in things like financial services industries, for insurance companies, but also for banking companies, in order to get the right type of customer. With insurance, it's all about finding the low-risk customers. That's what and offering them the best price and knowing more about your customers. And we can use web analytics, we can use big data, we can use that analysis and information we can get, and people to be much smarter about what customers we target and how much we pay to target them. And that's about being smarter about your online advertising spend as well. And then once we've got those customers, the ways we can continue to interact with them and upsell and cross-sell, again, much more opportunity for us. How we can understand how they're interacting with us with web analytics, understanding what they're looking at on our site, things like bounce rate, our conversion rates from browsing at something through to purchasing them, as well as leveraging things like social platforms in order to engage with our customers and be much more experiential about our marketing than that just traditional way of marketing where we just stuck something up on a big billboard and hoped it hit the mark. Yeah, we can be much more experiential and personal about how we market with our customers. Okay, and then the last ones I want to talk about: faster and cheaper connectivity, storage, and processing. So my microwave now has more processing power than the first space shuttle did. Highly flexible cloud solutions infrastructure. So things like Amazon's web services platform, the EC2 platform. So both in terms of being able to get cloud-based infrastructure at very low entry cost and then being able to scale that, but also some software now that's starting to appear around that. So people have heard of things like Salesforce.com, which is a customer relationship management platform where it's entirely hosted. You can just start very small and then scale it up from there. So both the infrastructure and some of that software, we can operate in a very elastic and very flexible cloud environments. And the last one then was about e-commerce platforms coming up that, again, you can use to get into market kind of very quickly. So things like iTunes and Amazon will actually provide you with e-commerce platforms you can use. Before maybe you need to go into those bigger platforms like Hybris or ATG we heard about earlier. But it's not just actually e-commerce, but other platforms as well allow you to operate like a business. So eBay being another e-commerce one, but even the likes of kind of YouTube for how you broadcast to your customers, or Twitter or Facebook, those things. Again, they're all platforms you can leverage in order to launch a business. And that's kind of this point that this cause, which is we can now leverage those technologies, those platforms, those tools in order to provide better services. I've put better in quotes there because it doesn't actually necessarily mean it's better at its core purpose, but services that all round are a better experience for the customer. And what I mean by that is you take the example of Apple. When they introduced the iPhone, it was not better at making calls than the Nokia 3310 was. But it was a better experience overall than the Nokia 3310 was, and therefore it started to become more prevalent in the market. And then they got better at the phone call stuff. And it's the same deal with LCD TVs when they came about. The picture was not better than CRT TVs, but they were lighter, used less power, and eventually they became more and more prevalent. So better doesn't necessarily mean it has to be better at its core purpose, but it needs to be a better experience for the customer. And you can leverage these tools, these platforms, and these much lower cost technologies and services now in order to get services and products out there that provide that better experience. And scaling is easier. We can use those cloud platforms, those softwares, solutions in order to scale what started quite small into something that's quite large. We heard about Pinterest before, which runs on a cloud-based infrastructure, allowed them to scale incredibly quickly. I'll talk about a few more examples later on as well. And all these things kind of come together to now we start seeing some new business models starting to come out, some new ways of interacting with our customers that we didn't think of before or weren't possible before, but they are now. Okay? And I want to talk about some of those business models. Not all of them. There's more out there, certainly, that I'm going to talk about, and there'll certainly be more that come along that I haven't thought about yet, which is a bit like these cause and effects. Again, there's certainly more trends out there and more to come. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is rent rather than buy. And for each of these, I've tried to give an example that's fairly obvious, and maybe an example that's a little bit less obvious. So rent versus buy is instead of going out and forking out £10 for a CD every time, in the case of Spotify, what we'll do is we'll pay a monthly fee, and then we can just download as much music as we want. Other examples of this are the likes of Netflix with streaming videos down yourself rather than going out and buying lots of DVDs or other Blu-rays or whatever. So yeah, Spotify, fairly obvious example. But actually, if you take the example of Rolls-Royce, the jet engine division, is trying now, rather than selling jet engines where they generally make a loss when the first time they sell the engine, they're now selling the hot air that's coming out the back of the engine. They're selling the use of the engine. And they can do that with much more powerful analytics built into their engines, and the ability to configure and tune those engines remotely means they're now renting engines to people, to airlines, rather than selling them that massive upfront cost in the first place. The freemium model. So the freemium model then is about giving something initially away for free, but then making your money out of the additional services, the upsell or the cross-sell that comes off the back of that. Again, a really obvious example, Skype. So being able to use Skype to make calls to other Skype users is free. But as soon as you want to ring a landline or a mobile, at that point you need to start paying for that. Or if you want to get a dedicated number for people to call you, you've got to start paying for that service. And then other things that we maybe don't even think about being a freemium model because they're not as obvious to us, the likes of kind of Facebook and Twitter. Again, they're free for us to use, and we just accept them because they're there in a way of life. But actually, ultimately, Facebook is looking to work out how they can upsell additional services in order to make that money back. And if you're a small business, you can set up a page on Facebook for free. But if you want to start marketing that out to beyond the people that are just maybe looking at your page, then you're going to have to pay for that service. So that's the freemium model, starting at a free or extremely low cost, and then scaling it up and charging for additional services. The long tail. So again, the best example of a long tail is Amazon. So we take the example of Waterstones with a physical store. There's only a limited number of books they can get into that physical store. So they're going to pick the books that sell the most. They're going to pick the 20% of books that deliver 80% of the revenues and fit them into the store. Which then means they leave that entire long tail of stuff that people don't actually buy that often. But if you can optimize your supply chain, if you can optimize how you sell stuff and how you deal with your warehouses and how you ship direct from consumers and things from distributors, then you can start to sell that long tail and start to tap into that market. So if you want to buy a book now, and it's a fairly obscure book, and if there are any technologists in the room, but if you want to buy like a book on a particular programming language or something like that, you're not going to go to your local bookstore to try and find it because you're pretty certain it's not going to be there. The first thing you're going to do is go and look at Amazon. That was a big part of their initial strategy, was supplying that long tail. And another example, maybe again slightly less obvious, is PayPal. So PayPal went after the same thing, but they went after it with payments. Yeah? So they went after people who wanted to take a payment or make a payment and didn't want to have to fork out the infrastructure costs and rental costs that come with signing up with Visa or American Express or MasterCard. So if you're a plumber or someone looking to sell something on eBay, you're not going to have a point of sale in order to use to do the transaction. So when PayPal came out first, that's what it was all about. It was about getting that long tail of people that are looking for small businesses or individuals who are looking to transact online. Now they've been quite successful. They're starting to go after the bigger opportunities. That's where we start seeing, the John Lewis's of this world and the Chain Reactions of this world starting to accept PayPal as a payment means. The last one then is peer-to-peer. Again, so this is selling, acting kind of as a middleman for various different services, not necessarily just selling, even for content and for knowledge exchange. But the most obvious one is eBay. Yeah. So allowing people to sell stuff to other people and just acting as that connection in the middle and charging for that service. Other one's Betfair. I don't know if anyone uses Betfair. It's just really a kind of betting exchange. They don't actually back any of those bets. People lay and then people buy those bets. They just take a cut off a margin in the middle. Another kind of less example is Zopa, which is a fairly kind of recent organization, but they're now starting to do this with lending. So if you've got money, and interest rates are pretty bad at the moment for savings, and you want to make some interest off that, you can go onto their site and you can offer up to lend that money out to people at a rate, and they will go out and they'll find people too, or people will go onto their site and borrow money off that, and again, they act as the middle ground. You lend it and other people borrow it. So we're seeing other examples of that peer-to-peer. So they're just some of the business models, like I said, not the only ones, and there's certainly new ones that come along. But about people thinking about how do we do business differently, how can we do business in a different way that's better for the consumer than those traditional models. Okay, the other interesting thing about digital disruption is then it actually can feed itself. So it kind of, if you take the example of Amazon, who built that online platform, built an incredibly powerful elastic data center, which meant they could scale very easily and scale it back and scale it up to allow with peaks in demand such as Christmas. And they kind of looked at this and went, well, that's pretty good. Why don't we sell that to other people? And off the back of that, they launched Amazon Web Services. Amazon Elastic Cloud was the first thing offered. So it's that platform where you can go and buy, rent, effectively, server space or processing power or storage space. And now one of the biggest hosting providers in the world completely disrupted the hosting market where everyone just expected, if I'm hosting a website, I've got to go and buy servers in someone's data center. And they said, look, don't worry about what we're doing about how to look after it, just come and rent something off us and we'll manage it for you. So they launched that. Off the back of that, some organizations started saying, well, actually, if some huge organizations with some massive data and processing requirements said, well, we can use that to be a very agile and flexible in our business. So we only pay for the infrastructure we need for the customers we've got right now. And if we've got more customers that are paying us more money, then our infrastructure will scale along with that, linearly alongside those costs. So if we have less customers giving us less money, then the cost of running our business goes down. And if we have more customers making us more money, then the cost of it goes up again. So again, we see this with the likes of Netflix. Netflix runs on Amazon Web Services. And other businesses as well. Pinterest, like I said, runs on Amazon Web Services. Everyone uses Airbnb as another online platform that rents out people's properties and stuff like that. Again, runs on Amazon Web Services. And then Netflix built this platform that allowed us to stream out movies and TV series to people. And again, a really nice platform in terms of understanding what series you should be interested in and recommending things to you. And then they said, well, why don't we use that platform to start doing our own content? So rather than just selling other people's content, why don't we leverage our own platform, start selling our own media? So they started disrupting the media industry. So they've now started launching their own TV series. So House of Cards, great TV series if you're a fan of The West Wing or something like that. And Arrested Development are all Netflix originally produced series that they distribute over their service and only their service. So it can feed itself. Distribution or disruption leads to further disruption. Saying that, it can also kill itself. As an example of Flip Video. So Flip Video were a bit of a poster child in about 2008, 2009 for disrupting the camcorder business. So they came in with I talked about just provide a better a better overall product, not necessarily better at the particular features. They came up with a low-cost camera that wasn't actually better than the Sony camera, but it cost a lot less. It was a lot more powerful and a lot easier to kind of get content on and off it. And it was hugely popular. It was a real kind of, it really damaged kind of Sony, Canon, Philips, those people's camcorder business. And ultimately, Cisco bought it for $590 million. They bought that company for. However, a year and a half later, a cheaper option came out for recording videos, and that was your mobile phone. And 2 years later, just 1 month off 2 years, they shut the whole division down and closed it, so it can disrupt itself. Okay, so how does this impact your business? Well, this is a study we did. It was actually our Australian colleagues that did it, but what they did was they looked at, it's called Short Fuse Big Bang. If you go and Google it, you can read the whole report. And what it does is it analyzes how big an impact digital disruption can have on existing industries, and so they call that the bang, the size of the bang, which is that kind of top to bottom axis of the impact. And they did that off a number of vectors for businesses. And then looks at when that disruption is likely to hit you, and that's the size of the fuse. So we take some examples there. So the retail trade is right over the left-hand side of that, so they're getting impacted right now. You have to respond. You need to be thinking about how do you react to that disruption, or how do you become the disruption yourself. And the impact to them is quite huge. Another one up there in the top left corner is the media industry. And I think we all know how much newspapers and things that have been disrupted by various different digital services. Down at the bottom is stuff that's probably going to be less impacted, but still somewhat to a degree, but certainly less. Likes of kind of food or mining or manufacturing. And the stuff that's over to the right then, the stuff that's got that longer fuse on it, tends to be pushed over to that side because it's a slower industry to respond, and a lot of it can be driven by things like if it's a regulated business, the regulation tends to slow down how long it takes for that disruption to get to it. That doesn't mean if you're on the right-hand side, you can just kick back and relax. That means if you're on the right-hand side, you've probably got a bigger opportunity to do something about it. So if you're in the top right, you have a real opportunity to kind of get ahead of the game. If you're in the top left, if you're on that sort of short fuse, big bang, then you really need to do something now to respond to that disruption to your business. Okay, so what should you do about it? Well, if you're an existing company and you're under threat, there's 4 things you can do. You can ignore it, wouldn't recommend it. You can invest more in your traditional business model. You can keep pushing that traditional way of working. You can counteract the disruption by disrupting it, or you can embrace it and look to do it better, look to do it at scale and cost and service. So the first one I'd say really isn't an option. The second one is an option. You just need to think about timing of it. It's not really a long-term strategy, but actually there is some merit in not cannibalizing your existing profitable market. So I was out with a bank yesterday, and I worked for a few banks, some which are brand new startups and are incredibly digital focused, and some that have been around for a long time. A lot of building societies that are incredibly branch focused. And it was one of the branch focused ones, and they were saying, well, we've only got a limited amount of money to spend. Should we be building a kind of mobile app? The answer to that probably was yes, but it was more saying about, well, actually, like, think about it bigger than just whether you build a mobile app. You need to think about, like, at what point are you going to try and compete with these digital players, and at what point is it time to start letting go of maybe your traditional market? And finding that point that you start to make that flip is a really interesting one for some businesses, because eventually those startup banks are going to come in and they're going to start completely cannibalizing your market, and you'd rather that you cannibalize your own business than somebody else did it. But find the point at which you start to make that switch is a really interesting debate for some companies. For other companies, it's a complete no-brainer. Just get on with it. But for others, it is worth thinking about. So if you are looking to be that cause of the disruption, so if you're looking to either embrace it or you're looking to disrupt the disruptor, what should you do? So I'm going to talk a little bit about an example of a client that I do a lot of work for Tesco Bank, who is a new bank, really only, not even kind of a full feature bank yet, so their current accounts will be launching early next year, but a real kind of new startup bank. And they had built that platform over the last couple of years. They built a bank effectively from a parking lot. And when they did it, they really just wanted to get a bank stood up, and they had to migrate some customers off of an old platform in order to do it. So they needed just to get something stood up, and they got something stood up that wasn't. They never went out to be a digital bank. They actually probably went out to be a telephony bank. But by the time they got there, the 87% of their trade was online, so they were a digital bank whether they liked it, but the experience wasn't very good. They weren't getting very good conversion. So what we did is we went in and did a bit of work with them to understand, well, what should their digital strategy be? How can we help them identify what type of bank they want to be, what type of digital bank they want to be? And the first thing we went in to do, and I say do this for everything, is understand who your customers are, or who do you want your customers to be. And again, this sometimes pretty easy for Tesco banks. Have so much analytics available to them, and they've got access to all of Tesco's data. So they were able to go in and say, well, these are the types of customers that we've got at the moment, and they're very clear vision in terms of who they want to serve. They want to serve the Tesco loyal. So these are the types of customers we're trying to serve, and we're able to mock up personas of what those people are. So we're able to say, well, this is Joanne. Joanne is a 33-year-old mom who works as a solicitor, but she's working part-time so she can look after her children as well. She likes to buy. So we modeled up what those personas were, and then we're able to start trying to understand what are their experiences day in, day out. What's a day in their life like at the moment using the services and products we offer, and what's a day in their life look like using the products and services other people offer, and where would we want to be? So what it wasn't about was like going on and optimizing what does the login process look like. It was about understanding, what does Joanne want to do in a day? She wants to go and buy groceries for her family. She also wants to look at buying a high value piece of jewelry as well, and understand if she can afford that and how she does so. But understanding what her day was like and what her experience is like, and then how the tools and things support that. And off that, start thinking about what services and products you offer to make her life and her experiences easier. And that's about building a proposition around your customers and experience. You can start with the technology, and sometimes you'll get fluky and it'll hit. But generally, think about what experiences you're trying to improve, and then build it. Yeah, and building it isn't just a matter of pulling it all together. Especially if you're a big existing business, you need to get the right people, the right ways of working, and the right kind of tools and technologies together in order to build that. And actually, that can be really hard for an existing business, because you're used to a way of working, a way of delivering things, and it works and it delivered the things you had before. Now you're looking to do something entirely new. You need to also think about getting the right people on board, and we heard about this earlier with Total Hockey, getting the right people involved to kind of help you to deliver it, but also the right way of working, so much more kind of agile and iterative and collaborative ways of working to deliver these solutions. The last point I want to make in this is, you're not going to get it right. Yeah. So the first time you release it, it's not going to be the perfect solution. Yeah. So you need to get something out there, and you need to listen to customers, and you need to get that feedback, and then work out how you improve it. It's normally the third version of something that's the real success. So it's trying to get to that third version as quickly as possible. Get it out there, get that feedback, use your web analytics, use the information you've got to improve that solution, and continue to evolve it and improve it. Okay, and I was going to talk about some examples, and I've talked about the first one already at Tesco Bank. I'll talk briefly just about John Lewis, actually, and the work we did for John Lewis. So we helped John Lewis to launch their new johnlewis.com, which went live in February. And that was really about helping them starting to think about online. They used to think about online as a store. Yeah, so it's just another store. So we've got the Oxford Street store, and it makes this much money. We haven't got the Belfast store. We've got this other store that makes this much money, and then we've got online, and it makes this much money. And what we're trying to do is, well, actually stop thinking about it like it's another store or another kind of separate channel, and don't think about mobile as another channel altogether. Think about how you service your customers across all of those channels, and start to allow your customers to move between the store, between online and a desktop, between online and mobile, and how you start to give processes and experiences that can move seamlessly and consistently between those channels. And in the retail world, we refer to this as omni-channel rather than multi-channel. But helping them launch that web experience that starts to deliver that, and new products and services that start to cross channels, like click and collect, where you can order something online and pick it up inside of the store. So it's starting them to start to think about this differently, and start to think about the front page of their website much more like a storefront. So it's changing seasonally. They're reacting to trends, like whenever a picture of Kate Middleton is posted on Twitter that goes viral, they're able to start reacting to that and go, well, let's get that to our suppliers. Let's get the clothes that kind of match those, and let's get them on the front page of the website so that people can come on and they can see it. And then let's tweet that we've done that on our Twitter account or on our Facebook account, so people know they can come to us and buy that stuff. So helping them think much more in that kind of that omni-channel way of thinking. So, but we went with them all the way, same with Tesco Bank, from the strategy right through to actually helping them to build it as well. That's me. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me. I hope I'm standing here in a year or 2 years' time talking about some of your business, and I hope even more that I get to help you doing it. Okay? Cheers. Thank you.